Well, happy Friday, everyone. Hope you've had a good week. Hope you enjoyed Cousin Ralph being here last Friday. I had to chuckle, the poor guy. All the times in the past when he's been on, I've been here in the background running the camera or giving him cues or whatever. And last week I left him totally on his own, and he said he was so darn nervous he couldn't remember what he was going to say and got mixed up in his story. And I thought he did pretty good, but yeah, he'll get used to it. I'll leave him on his own a little more often. Here, got to get this crew neck straightened out. Anyway, anyway, hope you enjoyed Cousin Ralph and his story. I'll have him back again. I'm sure he's got more stories to share with us. So that's Cousin Ralph. He's quite a character. Anyway, let's get on with our normal routine, and we have 2 shout-outs this week. The first is for Silber 47. That's Silber 47. He does coin collecting and coin roll hunting and different things like that. But you can learn a lot about coins. If you're interested in coins, there's a fancy name for coin collectors, which I can't recall at the moment. But if you're interested in that at all, go by and check his channel out. He's doing a push right now to get himself up to, I think it's 400 subscribers. So he's a fairly new channel and really could use some help and some loving. So go by and show Silber 47 that you care about him and you understand where he's at because you've been there yourself. Alrighty, and our second shout out is for VeggiePals. And it's a wonderful channel, mother and daughter, and they do cooking, and it's vegetarian cooking. So lots of really great vegetarian recipes, and I enjoy watching them. They usually show not only the cooking thereof, but the eating thereof, so you know that they aren't just making stuff up and then not using it, right? So anyway, VeggiePals. Sorry, I'm seeing the collar of the shirt in the video and it looks all out of whack, and it's bugging me because I have OCD and things that aren't straight annoy me. Alrighty, let's get on to our story for today, because it's story time. Well, how many of you excuse me, how many of you have ever seen a necktie? If you say no, I'm going to wonder where you've been hiding all these years. You ever wonder where they came from? Well, let's find out. The tie is the one article of male apparel that does not have a single practical purpose. And is there a man who has not complained about this silly and uncomfortable thing, only to don one again the next day? The answer to this mystery of the tie clearly lies in its symbolic value. Even in this age of casual attire, most of the so-called white-collar classes still wear ties on social occasions, as well as to work, perhaps to signal their place in those ranks. Men who encase themselves in the same blue, gray, black, or brown uniform every day lavish time and attention to the selection of a usually more colorful necktie. Most men in Western cultures knot the tie for formal gatherings like weddings and funerals, as if to punctuate the occasion. A boy's first necktie has become a rite of puberty, signaling a move from infancy to full-fledged boyhood. The priestly collar, with no accommodation for a necktie, is in part to symbolize the disdain of worldly things. And that's true. I'm just going to take a moment out. If you take a traditional full round clergy collar and take it and turn it inside out and put it on backwards, you have an old-fashioned men's removable shirt collar. And that happened back in the day of cravats and neckties when they first came out. The clergy, because they felt the neckties were frivolous and worldly, took their shirt collars off, turned them inside out, and put them on backwards as a protest against neckties. And that's where the modern clergy collar came from. All right, back to our story. In Frederick Wakeman's The Hucksters, one of the earliest fictional accounts of life amongst Madison Avenue heroes, on his way to an important interview... In Frederick Wakeman's The Hucksters, one of the earliest fictional accounts of life among Madison Avenue, the hero, on his way to an important interview, stops to spend most of his money on an expensive but sincere necktie, presumably arming himself with self-confidence. For many years, the male guests of a nightclub in Paris could be compelled by the hostess to stand up and sing a song. If they refused, or failed to perform to her satisfaction, she would cut their ties off with a large pair of scissors. The raucous laughter occasioned by this forfeit left little doubt that the act stirred unconscious emotions among the men. Laborers and farmers for countless eons have worn a cloth rag around their necks to absorb perspiration and keep off the sun. But as an article of fashionable dress, the necktie can trace its origin and its more formal name, cravat, to the decorative cloth worn around the neck and knotted in front by Croatian mercenaries who served in the army of King Louis XIV. Attracted by its cocky flair, French aristocrats adopted the cravat. It vanished after the French Revolution, but returned early in the 19th century. Styles varied according to one's profession or disposition. Romantic men took to wearing the flowing ties affected by the poet Byron. More sober males chose to wear tightly wound neckpieces. For those who could not make up their minds, a book called Neckclothomania, published in 1818, offered a choice of more than 20 styles, including a la Americana, which had a rakish, casual look. Beau Brummel, the greatest of the century's dandies, spent hours tying his cravat. The high point was the final knotting, often performed before an audience. For less fussy men, in the 1897 Sears Roebuck catalog, there was an offering of silk neckties pre-tied for 19 cents apiece, or 6 for $1. Although it may seem at first like a fairly simple proposition, the modern necktie is a bit of engineering clever enough to have earned its inventor, Jesse Langsdorff, a patent in 1920. It consists of 4 separate pieces of cloth, each of which is cut on the bias in order to prevent twisting or corkscrewing. To permit the tie to be knotted and pulled into place, the inner seam is slip-stitched and the thread allowed to hang within the thinner end. If that thread is pulled or cut short, the entire tie will most likely and inevitably come apart. Some time ago, tie manufacturers discovered that 2/3 of their annual sales were made at Christmas, a finding that encouraged them to lead the movement to establish Father's Day. What happens to those neckties is anybody's guess. Some years ago, 2 enterprising young men advertised, quote, "Mail us 1 to 6 ties you are sick of. You'll receive pronto same number of handsomely cleaned, different ties we got the same way. Then you pay the postman $1, unquote. Within 6 months, they had received 17,000 neckties. So there you have it, a little bit of history on the necktie. And those of you that grew up in the West know there's a thing called a necktie party, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. So it usually involves a hemp rope and a tree, and you don't want to be the one getting the necktie. Alrighty, are we ready? Are you ready? You sure? Because it's time for the Groaner of the Week. Well, a very, very wealthy businessman walked into a bank in New York City and asked to speak with a manager, got his appointment, laid $60,000 in U.S. bonds on the manager's desk, and said, "I'd like to borrow $1. The manager looked at him and said, $1? Yes, I'm putting up these bonds as collateral. I'd like to borrow $1. Well, the manager of the bank, seeing a chance for a future depositor, was quite happy, filled out the paperwork, presented the fellow with $1 and waved him off. Well, a year to the day later, the wealthy fellow walks back into the bank, asks to see the manager, and deposits on the manager's desk $1 and 7 cents to cover the interest for the year. The manager accepts, does the paperwork to close the loan, and then he looks at the gentleman and says, I really don't understand. He says, you're obviously very wealthy, I can tell by the way you're dressed, and $60,000 in U.S. bonds. Why would you want to borrow $1? And the wealthy man looks at him and says, well, you tell me where else in New York City I can get a safety deposit box use for 7 cents a year. So there you go. If you want a cheap safety deposit box, just find yourself $60,000 in U.S. savings bonds and you got her made. Hope you've enjoyed this week's output or input or upload or whatever you want to call it. And we'll see you on Tuesday when we have some fun in the kitchen. And until then, I hope you will take care, stay safe, and be blessed.